Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and today I'm looking at a book from Oxford University Press on telecommunications, law and regulation. It's now in a 5th edition and it's been edited by Ian Walden. It's an important work and one I think which is undervalued, certainly within the legal world. Reasons for that being multi-faceted. But the fact is, this book in particular is, I think, an important area for anybody who actually becomes involved in this particular substantive law area. Now, I've given it a title. Elizabeth and I talked about the book, and we review these books for one purpose, and that is to make sure people know they're around in case you have a particular reason, either academic or for research or practical for your practice. So that you know the availability of the books in case something crops up where you want to cross-refer and do more detailed legal research. So the title of our review is The Leading Telecoms Law Textbook of Strategic Importance to the Practitioner and the Academic in 2018. And that's exactly what Ian Walden and his colleagues have aimed to do with the book. Let's have a look at it first of all. It's only a short review, this one. It's a hardback book. There it is. There's the spine, and then there's not much on the back at all. It's a heavy book, and it runs to something approaching 900 pages, something like that. Now, inside dust cover, you can see there's a little bit of biographical detail about the author, Professor Walden, and then at the front there's a very small amount of information about the book. Basically, a statement of the obvious. No disrespect to them, but it's not very much. There's not very much information there. Let's have a look at the index. The index is therefore by page numbering. You can see a lot of detail there. It's quite a substantial index, actually. I was quite impressed with it. There we go. Then we get to the book itself. Right at the back, you can see paragraph numbering being used and footnotes being used all the way through. So if we go to the front of the book, and then we just lift it up again there. There's the front page. You can see there. As I say, it's in a 5th edition now. And then we go from there to the blurb about from OUP there, which you can see. Then you've got a preface from the editor, which is fairly straightforward. And I'm going to quote a little bit from the preface, which explains where the book came from and why we have it. Then you can see it's split. The content section is split into various parts. Part 1 starts off with fundamentals, regulatory regimes, and it runs through to 6 parts, international matters being at the end, 17 chapters in total. Then, of course, you've got the index at the back. Then you've got a table of cases, which is rather helpful. Not very many, I hasten to add. Some of which you will know, basically, I would say from company law, probably more than anything else. Then tables of statutes from there, and then you've got some statutory instruments tacked on at the back. And then after that, you've got other treaties and various other bits and pieces. They're all linked under table of statutes. Then you've got the EU legislation, which is to follow. That is part of many books at the moment, and notwithstanding Brexit Day on the 29th of March 2019, we are still going to have a lot of this legislation, such as this information here, which we will need to know about for the considerable foreseeable future. So the EU legislation runs through, and there's quite a lot of it. Then there are international instruments as well. Remember, this is telecommunications, so it's global. And again, I wish they'd make some more agreements on that, but not yet. Then you've got the list of contributors, and a lot of them. There we go, you can see some of them. I can't mention them all by name, but you can see their names there. And then we go to the end, all in alphabetic order. And then after that, we get into part 1, fundamentals. And then you see what you've got, just so you've got some idea. You've got a mini index for each chapter. So you should be able to find anything you're looking for very quickly. It starts off, of course, with telecommunication law regulation and introduction. This book examines national, regional, and international legal and regulatory frameworks governing the telecommunications sector. And that then sets you going, and it runs all the way through like that. We'll look at the book again right at the end, but let me tell you a bit about the book itself. This is taken from the basic information, so I may be repeating myself a bit, but giving you a little bit of advice from our perspective as to what is of interest possibly to you. There are 15 contributors who come together to update the previous 4th edition of this important book, which came out in 2012, and much has dramatically changed in the early part of the 21st century in the telecommunications industry. For obvious reasons, there's been a lot of development, a lot of new discoveries, and technology marches on at a pace. Now, Professor Ian Walden, who comes from Queen Mary at the University of London, writes, quote, that the telecommunications sector continues to be of strategic importance to states, both as an activity in its own right, as well as an infrastructure over which trade is carried out. And much change will surely come in the next few years, and demand increases in this area. And we're certainly seeing that at the moment. And of course, since the 4th edition of this book was published, numerous changes have occurred in the telecommunications sector at a national level, a European level, and an international level, which is to be shown and reflected in the amount of information at the beginning in terms of statutes and all the relevant regulatory materials. Such changes are brilliantly brought together in this book, which was primarily designed for the master's course in telecommunications law. And thankfully, the title remains both an important publication for academics and a useful practical text for lawyers. And the new edition of Telecommunications Law and Regulation takes many recent changes into account. And let me explain to you what they are in very simple terms, the important ones. It includes an examination of the adoption of Directive 2014/61 EU on the measures to reduce the cost of deploying electronic communications networks. And what the editor and his team have done is they've also reviewed Directive 2014/53 EU on radio equipment, including Regulation 2015 to 2120 on what is called open internet access and roaming, and of course the implications of Brexit on the EU telecommunications sector, with Brexit date fast approaching, are obviously quite profound, because we don't really know, even when I'm recording this in the autumn of 2018, where we're actually going at the moment with the Brexit negotiations. And of course there is also coverage of substantial regulatory developments in USA law since 2012, including the FCC's order on what is called Protecting and Promoting the Open Internet, which came about in March 2015. Again, I think that's very important, because there are a lot of changes happening very, very quickly, and that's one of the reasons why this new edition is so useful. The details provided by leading experts remain impeccable as essential reading for legal practitioners and academics involved in the telecommunications industry at all levels. And the book, as I've indicated, was published on the 16th of October 2018, and it takes account of materials available up to June 2018. And I'm recording this book actually in the middle of October. I'd like to thank everybody concerned for producing it. A huge amount of work's gone into it. Let's look at the book again. There it is. There's the front of it. There's not much on the back, just the spine. But if we go into the book, let me open it in the beginning here. This is authorization and licensing. You can see it's a very substantial work. You've got the standard paragraph numbering, and you've got the footnotes all the way through. In fact, you can't really see. You can see the paragraph numbering, in fact, there. You do have various tables and charts as well, which gives quite a lot of information. But I did find the book from the perspective of someone who does not understand much about this particular area of law, very, very helpful. Access and interconnection, very important because of the key regulatory issues. We are in an era of regulation. We've got part 4, for instance, on telecommunications transactions. Again, very detailed information, because it's looking at the cross-border nature of such transactions. And of course, as I've indicated before, with telecommunications law and regulation, you're not dealing about one country, you're dealing about a global requirement, hence the international aspects, which I think are very well covered by the OUP team. Anyway, a big thank you to Professor Walden and his contributors, and to OUP for producing a new edition. We're very grateful to all of you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.